Well, welcome to the Church Office podcast.
My name's Gavin Smith, and if you're joining us on video, then here's a little wave.
We're excited to have Nigel Ring join us.
I've never actually heard the word wicked and accountant put in the same sentence.
Well, hello and welcome to the Church Office podcast. My name is Gavin Smith, and welcome today to my special guest, Andy Gears from PrayerMate. How are you doing, my friend?
Hi, yeah, great. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
It's so good to have him on. We love talking about administration, operations, all the work that happens behind the scenes. And there are some really, really useful tools out there that can help us, not just in our own individual walks, but as a church. And so Andy and I met at the FIC conference, and I'm like, I've got to get this guy on the podcast. What an absolute legend. And by the end of the podcast, you will definitely agree with me. Andy, tell us a little bit about this app that you've created called PrayerMate. For somebody listening to the podcast who's not heard anything about it, give me a bit of background on this stuff.
So PrayerMate is an app that I originally created in my sort of spare time. Basically, I was studying at theological college for a while, and I was part-time running their IT and part-time studying. And then I had this extra day in the middle where I sort of could pursue other things. And so it was a great time to think about that kind of intersection between technology and faith.
Yeah.
And, so I created PrayerMate. I read a book as a student called A Call to Spiritual Reformation by Don Carson.
Yeah.
It's about the prayers of Paul, particularly in his different letters. But Don Carson shared his own kind of how he would pray, basically. And it got me really kind of, it was the first time in my life I think I'd really developed my own kind of habit of personal prayer and intercession. And but there's a few things I sort of found challenging about prayer. I mean, obviously just setting aside the time to habitually do it is a challenge.
Yeah.
I had these sort of people I would pray for daily, and the people closest to me, and then I'd have a sort of a kind of what I had was a little ring binder of pieces of paper that I'd go through, and people I pray for regularly but not daily. And what I tended to find was the people I prayed for daily, I would get quite sort of stuck in a rut of like, praying for this person again, like,
yeah,
really, Lord bless this person. And then the people I prayed for less often, I had a blank piece of paper and really no idea how to pray. And then simultaneously, I had an email inbox full of prayer letters from people working for churches who I supported, or missionaries, and they'd sometimes sit unread in my email inbox for a few days until I felt guilty enough to actually go ahead and read it. And then I might pray there and then, but when I came to their piece of paper in my ring binder, rarely could I actually remember what they'd asked for prayer for. So PrayerMate was an app that I thought, here's something that I think I might find useful. And it really tried to combine both those things. So firstly, it would tell me who to pray for. Like, here's a list, like the people I want to pray for every day, and then a different family member or person at church.
Yeah.
But then also it could give me suggestions of how to pray. I mean, it didn't initially do this, but over time we sort of gradually improved it and added new features. So these days you can get feeds from different churches or charities. So you could get open doors, how to pray for the persecuted church today, or different thing going on around the world in the country, or downloadable prayer packs, like 5 ways to pray for your kids, or 5 ways to pray for a non-believing friend, that kind of thing. And I just find so helpful for when I pray for that person every day, at least I'm getting a different suggestion of how to pray, and it just really helps keep it fresh and stuff.
So let me go back over some of these details then, because this is so you've created this app in a day a week, particularly in a kind of half-term break while you're studying, and essentially what you're describing there is just an organization of all the different things that you want to pray, bringing it into one place. I can see that sounds super helpful, because you're often, aren't we? We're thinking about our parents, we're thinking about our kids, we're thinking about our wives, and then we've got church and mission organizations and all the different things that we want to pray for, and all so it streamlines it and brings it into one place. Now, as an administrator, is there a lovely little tick box that you can click to say you've done this? Is that something that exists in there?
But you know what? I've tried to think really kind of theologically about the whole thing. Like, so it's I've read a lot of stuff about how our technology ultimately it really kind of changes us because
Yeah.
it shapes the whole way you think about a particular activity or whatever. So we have tried to sort of work really hard at inevitably, to some extent, if you're relying on an app like PrayerMate to help you pray, it is going to affect how you then think about prayer and
Mm.
what prayer is. And Mike Reeves, he had a really good book that I read quite early on called "Enjoy Your Prayer Life," and he talked about that real danger of prayer becoming just something that you do, like
Yeah.
and, he talked about the Pharisees that, or not the Pharisees, but like the religious leaders in Isaiah's day, where
Yeah.
God says, you honor me with your lips, but your hearts are far from me. So they're doing all the right things,
Yeah. Yeah.
but actually, it's only really making it worse because it
Yeah.
exposes their hypocrisy. So I've kind of resisted the like tick box kind of approach because I think that does lean into some of our sort of worst tendencies about how we think about prayer. But we do at least now have a nice big kind of I've finished praying sort of tick box button at the end that people seem to quite like.
See, I like that. I like that kind of little tick box thing to do it. But I love the way that you are approaching it and how you've been informed theologically to think, how do we pray?
Mm,
How can we intentionally do this? And the app helps you to be intentional, doesn't it? In
mm,
a way of what areas that you want to pray for, what areas would you like to. And I find it useful in terms of you've just got this record of things that you have prayed for,
mm.
and if we don't have that kind of record, we can't actually, just see God's grace at work and celebrate that with thanksgiving. Do you know what I mean? Because, things that I were praying for last year, I can't remember.
Well, that's one of the things I
You know
love
what I
about
mean?
it. Yeah, yeah. When I'm like, one of the nice things about it is you do kind of you over time you build up quite a wide range of people who you put in there like years ago because they asked for some prayer, and then every now and again they'll come up for prayer, and you're like, oh, I never would have thought to have prayed for that person.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But sometimes when they do come up, you see their prayer request from even 5 years ago, let's say, rather than using for a while, and you're like, oh wow, I can really see how my best man had been asking me to pray, but they'd make some friends at church.
Mm.
Like, I hadn't really thought about it very much, other than the times when I prayed. But then I went to his church and was introduced to someone, and he introduced himself almost as like I'm friends with Dave, and I was like, you're the answer to my prayers.
It's great. See it. Now, you're not going to tell me these stats, but as church administrators, we love stats. And I know, chatting to you, this is God's grace at working in using your app. We've got a phenomenal amount of stats. I think it's over 500,000 downloads and probably going up higher. Um, you've got 30,000 people using the app every month. I mean, this is incredible. And then you told me the stat about there's 1.5 million prayers that people are praying using the app every single month. That's something like 18 million a year. It is staggering, mate.
It's crazy,
Um,
isn't it?
from a little idea to where God has taken it now, and how useful a tool it is being for folk in the church. It's amazing. So well done, mate. Well done.
It's not, yeah, I mean, it really is God's grace. Like, here's this tiny little thing that I thought I would find helpful, and I thought maybe a few other people would. I do remember getting really excited when we reached like 4,000 downloads. The most amazing thing ever. So here we are. I mean, it's approaching 600,000 now. So,
Yeah.
but what I love though is it's not like not. I mean, the 1.5 million things prayed a month blows my mind every time I hear
Yeah.
it, and you think, what is
Yeah.
God doing in answer to all
Yeah.
those prayers? But above all, it's that kind of I love getting emails from people with the sort of feedback of how it's really kind of helped them in their relationship with God, because I
Yeah.
guess prayer is such a kind of fundamental part of
Mm.
our relationship with God. Someone's emailed the other day. We've been rolling out and we've been redesigning the app recently over the last few years and been rolling that out, and someone they were fairly honest in their email. I think they were like, I had sort of fallen out of the habit of using the app a little bit, and I was going to uninstall it, but I thought, well, I'll just check out this new interface, and he said it sort of helped him like rediscover it, and
Yeah.
kind of, but he said it's really helped sort of revitalize his relationship with God again, and I like that's the kind of feedback that really warms my heart. It's not just we're not just a sort of Silicon Valley company trying to make the app as successful as we can because it makes us richer. It really, we're a charity. It really doesn't. But because this is stuff that has eternal impact, and
I love that. I love your heart, mate. And let me recommend this for individuals to use and to download. You can download it from the App Store, Google Store, Amazon.
I've done interviews before where I went through the whole thing and realized I never even named the app, but it's called PrayerMate.
You did the interview without mentioning the name. I love that. But we'll put the links into the kind of podcast notes and promote it. Andy, I'm really interested in how you link this together, how you connect people. So if my wife and I sign up, is there a way for our accounts to link together and for her things to feed into me and so forth? I know we can talk over the kitchen table, but I'm just also, there are other things that pop up, don't they? And how it links to our church feed. I'd be really interested in how you kind of just share a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would say first and foremost, it is an app for your own sort of personal devotions, and it always sort of historically has worked best in that kind of mindset. There are three kind of bits of functionality we offer that do really help with praying either with other people or with your church especially. So the first one is we do have groups which we now offer, which are sort of a bit like a shared list. They were particularly designed initially for like a church small group. So you create a group. You can either, I mean, the simplest way is to do it under the umbrella of your church, so that the church can create an account and you get a certain number of groups for free, or it's a very sort of small fee. But then people can create a group under your church umbrella for free, and then you invite everyone in your group to join it, and it will create a little subject automatically for each person. And basically any prayer requests you write. So I mean, the kind of use case was you're meeting in a small group week by week, you share your prayer requests. If you're anything like me, again, you pray there and then, but by the sort of Thursday after, you've totally forgotten. And but these, it's just as someone shares, I kind of jot them all down in the group, and then through the week it reminds me to pray for those things. And, so, and that can be used. You can also create a personal group, which again, the person who creates it, there's a small monthly fee to create a group. And you can invite your wife for free to join it and share. So yeah, we do offer that. The other one for churches, your church can create a feed. So our church publishes on the bulletin sheet a kind of daily prayer suggestion, and I used to think, oh, that's a really good idea, and then fold up the piece of paper and shove it in my pocket, and that'd be the end of it. But they're now on PrayerMate, so they have a Euston Church prayer feed. We've got this clever thing called the quick import, where you can sort of copy and paste from your sort of Word document or your spreadsheet or whatever, and paste it in, and it can sort of, it takes basically 10 seconds to get that week's prayer points loaded in, and then every day when I use PrayerMate, it can pop up with today's prayer point for the church, and that's a really good way for like praying through the different ministries of the church, or if there's a guest event or something happening, we can it's great to be reminded to pray for those kinds of things. And then the third way you can kind of use it with other people, I kind of use it with my kids at night if we get to bed early enough anyway. That's their kind of reward if they're punctual, so we get to do it. And I've got so PrayerMate's kind of based around this idea of lists, and most of my lists are sort of my own prayer sort of circles essentially, but I've got a few lists that are specifically for my kids. So we have one of their different school friends or classes at school, one for different family members, one for people at church who they know or other families at church, and then one of like different sort of areas of personal godliness and growth, I suppose. Like
Yeah.
when if they heard a particularly memorable memory verse at a kids camp or something, we'll add that to the list. But then, so in our shared prayer time, I can create a prayer session pulling one item from each of those 4 lists. And they love taking it in turns to like pray for the different categories and things. So yeah, you can sort of isolate if you were to pray with your wife or with another family member or something. You can sort of set aside a particular set of lists that are just for when you pray with that person. Let's say.
I love that. So you can create those lists and do it. I hadn't even thought about, the possibility of getting kids involved and yeah, I love that.
There's a certain simplicity to it once it's set up, and we've heard of a lot of a lot of older people find the app quite. Perhaps they get their kids or their grandkids to set it up for them.
Yeah.
Then they can just swipe through. But similarly, over the years, I've had a number of reports of children really enjoying it because you can add photos of people to pray for, and you can keep it as simple as you like in terms of how much text you write underneath each name or whatever, and then they can just swipe through and say a little prayer.
Yeah, that's good. That's great, mate. And well, let me encourage you to go and download it for free and go and have a look at it, take a look at it and see if this could be of benefit to you on an individual basis. If you're a church leader listening and you're thinking, how do I communicate our prayer and things that we'd love to be folks in our church praying for in terms of mission or members or ministries, then this could be a really, really helpful tool to do that. And I love being able to kind of promote really, really good tools, but actually behind the people and your heart, Andy, and your approach is so encouraging and a joy to hear about. Talking about kids now, I'm quite excited about this because at your stand at the FIC conference where we met, you were giving out sweets and snakes, and I was kind of intrigued as to what was going on and how this linked into what you adhere to. But you've got a new game, haven't you, that you're in the middle of developing? Fill us in on this and the name.
Yeah, so we were handing out jelly serpents because our game is called The Serpent and the Seed. Yes, it's slightly more ambitious than I perhaps intended it to be. But it's supposed to be a sort of Bible overview, basically. So it's in 4 chapters. So chapter 1 is like the Garden of Eden and the fall, and so sort of essentially that's sort of setting up the problem of like, why is the world the way it is? There's so much beauty in the world, and yet also so much brokenness that we experience. And but it ends with that promise from Genesis 3 of your seed will crush the head of the serpent. And so the rest of the game is tracing that promise through the Bible, basically. Chapter 2 is like the whole of the rest of the Old Testament in a whirlwind tour, meeting different candidate seeds. Is it going to be Abraham? Is it going to be Moses? Is it going to be David? Well, no. But then they all come with their own promises, like a seed of Abraham will be a blessing to the nations, or a seed of David will be king forever. And then chapter 3, I won't spoil, but surprise as to who the seed turns out to be. So we're really, really excited about it, actually. It's been a bit of a labor of love for mine. I'm basically 19 years into my dream of trying to make a Bible computer game.
19 years. Wow.
Okay. It was kind of born out of frustration of sort of 6 or 7 years into that. I was just getting nowhere, and I was really like despondent about the whole thing. So I was like, I'm just going to have to make something smaller, and let's make this prayer app. But then through PrayerMate, we've been able to set up this charity, Discipleship Tech, of sort of more broadly using technology to help people get to know Jesus better. And then that's provided the structure through which we've kind of been able to revisit the game idea. So we're 3 years into building The Serpent and the Seed, and we've taken a little demo to various. Well, last year it was mostly Christian conferences like the FIC one, and especially Word Live back in April. And it was really exciting. After like sort of 18 years in, that's the first time we've been able to put a game in people's hands and say, play this, and they seem to love it. But our real heart of it is not just to kind of reach Christian people and Christian kids. We really wanted to build something that would help a non-Christian engage with the Bible and discover the sort of hope within its pages. And it was basically inspired by some research that the Bible Society did, where they surveyed 20,000 UK adults, and their big about attitudes to the Bible in particular, and their big headline discovery was 1 in 4 were kind of open to engaging with the Bible and finding out more. But they also identified certain impediments that stop them, like not
Yeah.
understanding the big picture of the
Yeah,
Bible and
yeah.
not seeing how it's relevant.
Storyline of scripture. Yeah.
So our real heart is to kind of engage with some of those people and help them sort of help orient them with the Bible and how to get started. And so this last 2 weeks ago now, 2 weeks ago today, we took it to our first secular games conference, and with a little bit of trepidation as to how people would respond. But honestly, people seem to absolutely love it. I was really kind of blown away by the response, and that was massively encouraging for us to sort of try and crack on and get the game finished. So yeah, it's quite an unusual game. It's very kind of it's quite chilled. It's not like high octane
Yeah.
anything, but it's got really beautiful artwork. We've got some incredible music by a little indie folk duo from America called Bishop Hooper, and they really specialize in writing songs based on the Bible. So they've done for each of our 4 chapters, they've written just the most incredible, otherworldly
Amazing.
songs, and then a bunch of other sort of music in between. And it's really kind of otherworldly is the only word I can really use. You've sort of encountered something special when you hear it, and it's really. I've had people on the verge of this conference last week. Someone was on the verge of tears. He said, "I never expected a game to make me cry."
A gospel impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really helps people
Great.
feel having sort of enjoyed the sort of perfection of Eden, and then you sort of see it ripped away, and it's
Just that brokenness. Yeah. No, that sounds great. And so when are you hoping to get this launched? It's 19 years in work. You're 3 years into development.
Well, between you and me, Gavin, I'm sort of working towards having it ready to launch this, like ideally like for Advent this year.
Yeah.
Failing that, I think maybe like the 20-year anniversary will be like
Okay.
middle of January. But that's what we're working towards. There's a lot left to do, but we've built all the kind of key Bible moments, I would say.
Yeah.
I haven't done the new creation yet. That's this month's job. But we've then just got to go. There's a lot of sort of context setting, extra kind of detail that we want to add in. But, yeah.
Mate, well, we will let's do a podcast together on your launch. Love to hear about it. Love to play it. And are you thinking it's going to be a chargeable thing that people can buy and download?
No, I mean, again, don't hold me to this, but I suspect we'll be giving it away for free. I mean, that's certainly our hope, because a lot of the game has been funded through charitable grants, and I think our sort of, we want to get as many people as possible to play it, basically, and so I think we'll be able to give it away for free, which the challenge then will be to sort of how to fund. Definitely have a little bit of fundraising left to do this year, but we'll see.
Well, if you're listening to this and you think, gosh, this is something I would love to see, whether you're a church leader and you've got some finance, or you're an individual that's thinking, oh, how could I use my funds over the next year to see something really come to market that would really bless kids in the church, but also this lovely focus of saying, how do we get kids playing this outside the church with the gospel opportunity, to tell people about Christ and to visually see, just a storyline of scripture unfold, and just the glorious of Christ coming to rescue us, is exciting, mate. So if you'd like to get involved in funding, what's the best way of doing that, Andy?
Well, we have a website, serpentseedgame.org, and there is a sort of, you can donate to Discipleship Tech through that form, or just drop us an email. Our email address is on there. And,
great. And so the Discipleship Tech, sorry, is is the kind of umbrella for both of these projects. Have you got other projects that you worth filling us in on?
Yeah, so that's our sort of registered charity here in the UK, and as I say, it's kind of our tagline is using technology to help people get to know Jesus better.
Yeah.
So that includes PrayerMate, and for a lot of people, PrayerMate is the sort of by far the better known brand. We also have a little Bible reading app we made. We kind of did a very simple version a few years ago, and then last year for Word Live we kind of revamped it. It's called Redeeming Time.
Yeah.
And that the idea of that is, you've got those sort of 5 minutes between or waiting for a bus or sat on the sofa while you're waiting, and like it's so easy to just you go on Instagram or whatever and you scroll away those minutes, and they quickly it becomes 20 minutes before you know it. So the idea of redeeming time is you tell it, I've got 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and then it will suggest a bit of the Bible that you can read in that time.
Brilliant.
Gives you a little prayer and then a few questions for reflection at the end. And but then also our new update is it is a sort of alternative mode where it says, well, what if I had 5 minutes not just as a one-off, but if I had 5 minutes every day, and actually over 3 days you can get through a more substantial book. Over a month you can get through quite a lot actually. So and actually that's just, it's a very small app compared to PrayerMate, but that's just reached a really exciting couple of milestones. So it's just about to have its 10,000th download, but more encouragingly, 10,000 people have, or 10,000 Bible books have been read in the past year. So
is that right? 10,000 Bible books. That is great.
Well, that is, there probably a lot of them are quite short ones, like 1 John or Philemon or something like that.
But still, it's great.
The vision behind that is not necessarily that you're going to be using it seriously for years on end, but it's just to sort of kickstart that kind of habit of what if instead of turning to social media instinctively, what if I was just to try and get more of God's word into me?
Andy, I love that, and your passion to get people in Scripture, your passion to get people praying and kids involved in this game, and mate, it's so encouraging, and thanks for all you're doing on that, mate. And I hope listeners can connect into one of these 3 projects and support you in some ways, and at the same time benefit from using them. And if you're a church leader, particularly in thinking about this prayer aspect, then please get in touch with Andy, or get in touch with us, and we'll pass you on to Andy and answer any questions and something like that. We'd love to do that. But thanks for taking the time to chat to us on the podcast today, mate. It's great to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we wish you all the best in everything you do. And if the church office can support you in any way that we can, then we'd love to be able to partner with you and do that. So it'd be a privilege. Well, thank you so much for listening, and thanks for stopping in and listening into Andy and all the different tech that he's got going to encourage people. If you've got any questions or any ways that the church office can better support you in your work behind the scenes in churches, administration, operations, then please get in contact. We'd love to get to know you and find out a little bit about how we can serve you. Any questions at thechurchoffice.co.uk. The website has got new things added each week, so please look at those things, and hopefully they'll be a blessing to you. All right, we'll see you again on the podcast. Take care. Bye-bye.